The sun was blazing over Enugu's central market, the kind of heat that made tempers short and shadows sharp. Vendors shouted prices, children darted between stalls with baskets of oranges, and the smell of roasted corn mixed with the dust of the afternoon. In the middle of the crowd, Adaeze Okoro strutted with the confidence of someone who believed the world owed her space. Dressed in a fitted blazer and designer shoes, she carried a leather handbag worth more than what most vendors made in a year. Heads turned as she walked, not in admiration, but in irritation. "Excuse me, move," she snapped, pushing past a woman balancing plantains on her head. "Do you people not understand time? I'm late for a meeting." Adaeze worked at Tech Horizon, one of Nigeria's fastest-growing companies, founded by billionaire Mr. Kenechukwu. She was an operations manager, young, ambitious, and ruthless. Her rise had been meteoric, fueled not only by skill, but by arrogance. To her, poverty was laziness. Beggars were irritations, and kindness was weakness. As she reached the fruit stall, a frail old woman stepped into her path. "Biko, my daughter," the woman's voice trembled. "Please, just a little money for food. I haven't eaten since yesterday." The woman's wrapper was faded, her sandals mismatched. Wrinkles carved deep into her dark skin, and her hair was streaked with white. She clutched a small bowl in her hands, holding it out with trembling hope. Adaeze stopped, eyes narrowing. A crowd began to notice. Vendors fell silent, curious to see how the elegantly dressed young woman would respond. Instead of compassion, Adaeze sneered. "Move out of my way," she said coldly. The old woman held her ground. "Please, just small change. God will bless you." Something inside Adaeze snapped. She looked around, saw the crowd, and felt the heat of their eyes. Instead of shame, she let pride take over. "You dare block me? Do you know who I am?" Adaeze's voice rose sharp as glass. "I manage operations for Tech Horizon. I don't work my whole life just to feed beggars who do nothing." Gasps rippled through the crowd. A young man with a phone began recording. Adaeze wasn't finished. She stepped closer, towering over the frail woman. "Look at you dirty rappers smelling of the street. And you think you can stop me? You people are the reason this country is backward. Lazy, useless." The old woman's eyes filled with tears, but she whispered softly, "Child, you should be careful how you use your tongue." "Careful." Adaeze barked a laugh and then shoved the woman's bowl aside. Coins clattered to the ground, rolling into the dust. A tomato seller gasped. Children froze mid-play. The woman staggered, nearly falling. A young boy rushed to steady her, glaring at Adaeze. "You didn't have to do that," he shouted. Adaeze smirked, adjusting her handbag. Maybe next time she'll think twice before embarrassing herself. The crowd began murmuring, their whispers sharp, their eyes accusing. Phones were raised higher, recording every second. But Adaeze didn't care. She turned on her heel and walked away, her heels striking the pavement like a gavel. That night, the video hit social media. On Twitter, the caption read, "Tech Horizon manager humiliates poor beggar in Enugu market." Within hours, it was everywhere. Instagram reels, WhatsApp statuses, even Facebook aunties shaking their heads in disbelief. Comments poured in, "Wicked girl, God will humble you." And by noon, it landed on the desk of Mr. Kenechukwu himself. The billionaire stared at the frozen frame on his iPad, Adaeze's face twisted in scorn, and in front of her, the frail old woman clutching her bowl. He pinched the screen to zoom closer. His chest tightened. His hands trembled. The woman in the video, the beggar in the market, was none other than his mother, Mama Adaeze. By Monday morning, the entire city seemed to know her name. Adaeze stormed into Tech Horizon headquarters with her chin high, clutching her handbag like a shield. Dozens of eyes followed her as she crossed the lobby, some curious, others hostile. Conversations hushed the moment she passed. Screens lit up with the viral video paused at the moment she shoved the poor woman's bowl to the ground. Adaeze forced a laugh. "Let them talk," she muttered to herself. "Jealous nobodies. I'll deal with this." But deep inside, her stomach churned. When the elevator opened on the 15th floor where the executive offices stood, she stepped out to an eerie silence. Staff who once fawned over her now avoided her gaze. A junior analyst whispered to another, "That's her, the one who insulted the beggar." Adaeze whirled on them. "Say it to my face if you're bold," she snapped. The analysts scattered. She marched into the boardroom where a crisis meeting was underway. Screens displayed the clip again, playing on loop. Executives shifted uncomfortably. At the head of the table sat Mr. Kenechukwu, the billionaire CEO. His expression was unreadable. Sir Adaeze began quickly, "This video is being twisted." That woman provoked me. Before she could finish, the boardroom doors creaked open. Everyone turned. There, standing in a simple wrapper and headscarf, was Mama Adaeze. She looked frail, yet her presence filled the room. A security guard tried to stop her, but Kenechukwu raised a hand. His face went pale. "Mother," he whispered. Gasps erupted around the table. Adaeze froze. The blood drained from her face. Mama Adaeze stepped forward, slowly leaning on her walking stick. Her voice, though cracked with age, carried the weight of truth. "Yes, my son, it was me. I went to the market that day. I wanted to see how ordinary people live now that you are surrounded by glass towers and wealth. And there, this girl," she turned, eyes locking on Adaeze, "this girl treated me like dirt beneath her shoes." The room was deathly silent. Adaeze's mouth opened, but no words came out. Kenechukwu rose to his feet, staring at his employee in disbelief. "Adaeze, it was my mother. The woman you shoved, the one you humiliated in front of the whole market, that was my mother." Adaeze stammered, her voice breaking. I didn't know, sir." "If I had known," Mama Adaeze's eyes narrowed. "And if you had known she was your boss's mother, would you have shown respect? Or is it only power that earns your kindness?" The words struck like thunder. Executives nodded grimly. Some whispered prayers under their breath. Adaeze's composure cracked. She dropped her bag on the table, her knees trembling. "Please, sir, I beg you. I was under stress. But Kenechukwu's voice cut her off, cold and firm. "Enough. This company was built on values, dignity, respect, humanity. You have shamed us. You have shamed me." "Sir, I can fix this. You're finished here, Adaeze," he said sharply. "Pack your things. You are terminated, effective immediately." The boardroom erupted. Some shook their heads, others sighed. Cameras from the corporate media team captured the moment, proof that Tech Horizon valued integrity over arrogance. Adaeze collapsed into her chair, tears streaming down her face. "Please, don't do this." Mama Adaeze's voice was calm but cutting. "My daughter, the market dust washes away. But the dust you threw on your own heart, that stain will follow you until you change." Kenechukwu turned to the guards. "Escort her out." Two security men stepped forward. Adaeze clutched the edge of the table, but there was no mercy in the room. She was dragged toward the door, her cries echoing through the corridor. By the time she reached the street, journalists were waiting. Cameras flashed, microphones shoved in her face. "Miss Adaeze, is it true you insulted the CEO's mother? Do you have any comment on your dismissal? What lesson do you think others should learn from this?" Adaeze covered her face with her hands, pushing through the crowd. The video of her being thrown out of Tech Horizon would soon go as viral as the one from the market. Her fall was complete. The same city that once envied her now mocked her. She had risen high on pride, and in a single week she had been stripped of everything. The days after her dismissal blurred into a haze of humiliation. Everywhere Adaeze went, whispers followed. Her face was splashed across newspapers, blogs, and social media feeds. Memes mocked her arrogance. Clips of her shouting at Mama Adaeze played again and again, each replay another stab to her pride. When she walked into her favorite cafe, the barista stiffened. Customers exchanged glances. Someone whispered loudly, "That's her. The one who insulted the beggar." Adaeze fled, her cheeks burning. At home, the silence was worse. Calls from colleagues stopped. Friends who once begged to sit at her table no longer returned her messages. Even her landlord grew cold. One afternoon, a notice slid under her apartment door, "Rent overdue. Vacate within 14 days. She sat on the floor, clutching the paper, her chest tight. Just weeks ago, she was an admired manager, draped in designer clothes, sipping imported wine. Now she was counting coins to buy bread. Job applications became her daily routine. She polished her resume, emailed dozens of companies, and knocked on countless doors. But everywhere, rejection met her. "Sorry, your reputation doesn't fit our culture. We don't want negative publicity. Come back in a year." Each rejection crushed her further. Finally, out of desperation, she walked into a cramped office above a noisy roadside market. A faded sign read, "Bright Future Tech. Start small, dream big." Inside, only 3 desks, 2 old computers, and a buzzing fan. A young woman looked up from her seat. "Yes," she asked. I'm here about the admin job," Adaeze stammered. The woman squinted. "Wait, aren't you?" Adaeze's stomach dropped. But instead of mockery, the woman shrugged. "We don't care about gossip here. Can you type? Can you file documents? Can you answer phones?" Adaeze swallowed hard. Yes, I can." And just like that, she was hired. The first weeks were brutal. Adaeze, once used to delegating tasks, now spent hours making photocopies, sweeping floors, when the cleaner didn't show even running errands for the interns. She endured jokes from market women downstairs who recognized her. "See how the mighty have fallen," one vendor cackled. "Madam Manager now buying ground nuts like us?" Adaeze bit her lip, blinking back tears. But as days turned into weeks, something inside her began to shift. For the first time, she listened to colleagues younger than her, to customers struggling to pay, to her own conscience. She apologized quickly when she made mistakes. She stayed late to fix broken printers. She began greeting the janitor with respect, remembering how invisible she once made people feel. One evening, as she locked up the office, the CEO of the tiny startup, a man barely older than her, approached. "You know," he said kindly, "I read about you when the scandal broke. At first, I didn't want to hire you, but I took a chance. And I see now you're different from the woman in that video." Adaeze's throat tightened. "I'm trying. Every day I'm trying." He nodded. "That's all anyone can ask." Her words echoed. "The dust you threw on your own heart, that stain will follow you until you change." Adaeze whispered into the darkness, "Mama, I didn't see you that day. I didn't see anyone but myself. But now I want to change." And for the first time in her life, she prayed not for success, not for riches, but for humility. Months rolled by. The scandal that once consumed the internet slowly slipped down the trending lists, replaced by fresh gossip and new controversies. But for Adaeze, the memory never faded. Every day at the startup, she was reminded of her fall. Yet every day she also discovered something new about herself. She learned to laugh with colleagues over cheap noodles instead of expensive lunches. She learned to respect the cleaner who came in at dawn, remembering how invisible she had once made people feel. She even volunteered on weekends at a community center, teaching young girls basic computer skills. One evening, as she prepared to leave the office, the young CEO of the startup approached her with a paper in hand. "Someone sent this to us," he said. "A recruiter from Tech Cradle. They're looking for mid-level managers. I think you should apply." Adaeze's heart stopped. Tech Cradle was one of the fastest rising firms in the region, known for innovation and tough competition. Getting in was like winning the lottery, but her excitement quickly turned to dread. "Me, after everything. They'll Google my name and see the video." The CEO smiled gently. "Maybe, but maybe they'll also see someone who didn't give up. Someone who's still standing." She wore a simple navy dress, not designer, just neat. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched her resume. The receptionist gave her a polite smile, though Adaeze caught the flicker of recognition in her eyes. She'd seen the video. Adaeze thought her stomach twisting. Inside the conference room, 3 interviewers sat with tablets. One of them, a stern woman in glasses, leaned forward. "Miss Okoro, let's get to the point. We've seen your work experience. Impressive. But we've also seen your scandal." Adaeze's throat tightened. She could have denied it, excused it, blamed stress. The old her would have. Instead, she took a deep breath. "Yes, that was me. I insulted a poor woman in public. I humiliated her. And the world saw it. I lost everything because of it. My job, my friends, my reputation." The room was silent. The interviewers exchanged glances. Adaeze continued, her voice steady now. "But losing everything forced me to see what I had become. Arrogant, blind, cruel. Working at a small startup these past months has taught me humility. I've cleaned floors, answered phones, helped colleagues half my age. And I've learned something I never knew before. Leadership isn't about status. It's about service. The woman in glasses raised an eyebrow. So why should we hire someone with such baggage? Adaeze looked her straight in the eye. Because I will never take this chance for granted. I've already seen what happens when pride leads. I want to prove that a person can change. That I have changed. The panel fell silent. One of the interviewers, a younger man, tapped his pen thoughtfully. Thank you for your honesty, Miss Okoro. We'll be in touch. She didn't know if she would be hired, but for once she didn't care. She had told the truth, not the polished version, not the excuses, just the truth. That night, she walked home past the market where everything had begun. Vendors still shouted, children still ran, and in the corner where she once shoved an old woman, she paused. She could still hear the echo of her cruel words, the clatter of coins hitting the ground. Adaeze closed her eyes, whispered a prayer, and promised herself never again. Her phone buzzed. An email notification. Heart pounding, she opened it. Tech Cradle, we are pleased to inform you that you have been shortlisted for the next stage of our recruitment process. Adaeze sank onto a bench, tears filling her eyes. For the first time in a long while, the future didn't terrify her. It inspired her. The ballroom of the Hilton Hotel glittered with gold and glass. Banners reading Tech Horizon. 10 years of innovation hung proudly while the city's elite filled the hall. Journalists clustered near the red carpet, snapping photos of executives and celebrities. On the stage, Billionaire, Mr. Kenechukwu stood at the podium, his voice steady as he welcomed the crowd. 10 years ago, this company was a dream, he said. Today, it is a reality because of resilience, innovation, and above all, values. Applause thundered. At the back of the hall, unnoticed among waitstaff carrying trays of champagne, stood Adaeze. She had come not as a guest, but as a volunteer server hired by the catering company to earn a little extra income. She wore a plain uniform, her hair tied back, her head bowed as she moved between tables. Part of her wanted to leave. The memories were too raw. This was the very company that had cast her out. But something inside whispered, stay. Face it. Midway through the evening, Kenechukwu raised a hand for silence. Tonight I want to share a story, he began. Not about profits or projects, but about people. The crowd leaned in. Some months ago, one of my managers humiliated a poor woman in a public market. She mocked her, shoved her bowl to the ground, and thought no one would care. But the world did care. The video went viral, and that woman, he paused, his eyes softening as they found his mother seated near the front, was my mother. Gasps rippled through the hall. Many already knew the story, but hearing it from his own lips made it electric. That manager, Kenechukwu, continued, lost everything. She was fired. She was disgraced. She became a warning of what arrogance can do. Adaeze froze. Every word was a knife, yet also a mirror. She gripped the tray in her hands so tightly, her knuckles turned white. But here is the part many do not know. Kenechukwu said, his voice deepening. That same woman did not disappear. She humbled herself. She worked in a small startup. She volunteered in her community. And when given the chance, she stood before recruiters and confessed her failures, not with excuses, but with honesty. The hall was silent. Kenechukwu looked out over the audience. We talk of innovation, but innovation means nothing without integrity. Tonight I tell you, people can change. And when they do, we must have the courage to give them a second chance. Then his eyes swept the room and landed on Adaeze. For a moment, time stopped. Miss Adaeze, he said clearly, please come forward. The entire hall turned. Whispers erupted. The server holding the tray trembled. Slowly, Adaeze placed it down and stepped toward the stage, her legs weak. When she reached him, she kept her eyes low. Sir, I didn't know you'd. Kenechukwu raised a hand. Look at me. She lifted her head, tears brimming. My mother has forgiven you, he said softly. I have forgiven you. The question is, have you forgiven yourself? Her lips trembled. I'm learning to, sir. The audience watched spellbound. Kenechukwu nodded. Then tonight, let this be official. Adaeze Okoro will rejoin Tech Horizon not as a manager, but as something more important, a mentor in our new program on ethics and leadership. Applause exploded across the hall. Cameras flashed. Some executives looked surprised, others approving. Adaeze's vision blurred as tears streamed freely. Thank you, she whispered. I won't waste this chance. Mama Ebele rose from her seat, her walking stick steady, her voice carrying clearly. My daughter, you stumbled, but you rose again. May your steps from here lead others to humility. The crowd erupted in cheers. Weeks later, Adaeze settled into her new role. No longer the arrogant manager, she stood before young interns, sharing her story honestly. Power without compassion is poison, she told them. I learned that the hard way. Don't repeat my mistake. Her words carried weight because they came from scars, not theory. And for the first time, Adaeze felt peace. She was no longer defined by the moment she shoved a poor woman in the market. She was defined by the choice to change afterward. In the quiet of her small apartment, she often whispered the prayer that had guided her through the darkest nights. Lord, make me humble, so I never forget where I came from. And though the world might still remember her fall, she chose to live so they would also remember her rise.